Hey guys, Dr. Paul here, hanging out with Brian Capra, owner, creator, developer of Genesis. And as many of you know, we've incorporated this into our practices. And just want to do a quick interview with Brian, just kind of talk about the benefits of why we switched from our previous system and let him really explain things better than I would, because I'm not a tech guy and Brian's a tech guy. And I think he will help give a better understanding of the benefits of actually using his system. So Brian, welcome. Thanks, man, for jumping on the phone with me, or video, whatever
pleasure.
This is.
I really appreciate you doing this for Genesis. It's one of those things where you get lumped in with software companies or technology, and there's more to it. So
Yeah.
It's really hard to explain the differences in an elevator pitch to docs, but things like this where you're helping us get the message out, I really appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I start off, let's tell them when did you start? Kind of how did this evolve for you? Like,
okay,
where did Genesis come from, right?
What was the genesis of Genesis?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Genesis, I was in practice. I graduated from life in 2002. Went down in Florida, worked in some really high volume practices down there. You know the guys. Then moved back to New Jersey, opened my practice, and was using your traditional type software. There's ones out on the market right now that are similar.
Yeah.
And I had a couple issues. One was managing my patient retention, and because I always had to go to reports, and I'd go out to I'd be somewhere outside the office, and I could never really leave it at the office. I'd remember a patient where
how I know that pain. The next morning you write it down. The next morning, hey Mary, where's John at? Right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you go. What do? As soon as you get to the office, you find out what happened. Oh, we didn't follow up on no-shows, or we didn't present the new care plan, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, man, when you're a chiropractor, that's just not a business thing. That hurts,
Yeah. Yep.
And
you can never shut the monkey off, right? It's a curse. It's like,
it hurts. It hurts. It's personal, right?
Yeah.
You take that thing, and now that's the emergency, right? Well, we didn't represent the new care plan. Well, that's the emergency. Let's talk about a process. Let's train on it, and that we get really good at until the next month when you lose another patient, and that reason is different. Now it's no shows we didn't follow up on. Now that's the emergency. Management by fire, and it's frustrating, and it's people's lives. In chiropractic, it's so much more to us, and to them, to the point where I actually had a patient that I lost, and I found out he committed suicide.
Wow.
And when I went to through the whole process, when I went back to the office and I looked at his chart, and we did almost everything wrong for him. His balances were wrong. We didn't do the no-shows weren't followed up on properly, and I just knew there had to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to use technology. And at the time, there really wasn't. It was kind of getting there. Technology was different back then. So the cloud was kind of just a thought, right? You didn't really think that that's something you could run a practice on. But and then I had a billing issue. I had my AR was all over the place. I had a billing company, and I couldn't, they would send me a paper report like that thick every month, and I wouldn't know what to do with it. I know I was getting money. I didn't know if it was what I was supposed to be getting paid, or or that
writing it off.
Or I was losing a ton of money. I had no way to know. There's no transparency. I'd send them a fax every day, or my staff did, of what I built that day, what I saw, the patients. Anyway, so I met two gentlemen. One was a CIO on Wall Street, one of the top 5 financial firms on Wall Street. His son, my practice was in Princeton, New Jersey. So his son was a Princeton grad, computer science. So I met them, and they were in technology. So they showed me a piece of technology they were actually building for billing insurance in the cloud, where you could submit your claim. The claim went all the way to the insurance company and all the way back from the insurance company, posted automatically, as you know now. Posted automatically, and then so you could see the whole process. You could see exactly where your accounts receivable numbers were in real time. Drill in, look at a claim, see what they were saying to insurance companies. The notes were all there. So I had 2 different systems. I had a practice management system, and then I had this billing technology. And what I learned with the billing technology was, with this in the cloud, is that the way it worked really is that it was building rules, so that if a claim was incorrect going out, or when it came back from the insurance company, the technology was able to look at every single claim and every possible reason why somebody would need to do something about it. And so the claim would get pulled, and this still works, that your biller, or if you're outsourcing it, the outsourced person, and you have that flexibility. But they know exactly what they're supposed to do. Here's the claim, here's why it's here, go call and follow up. So there's no more looking through reports. So when I saw that, I immediately knew that this patient that I missed, if I had a system that was looking at all my patient charts, which are in essence reports, and rather than me and my team having to go to the different reports every single day, going to find the work, just like an aging report, and it would find what would be showing us that the patient was a risk for leaving, for never coming back. They had no-shows, that were they had a no future appointment, they had a care plan that was about to expire, something like that, where my team didn't have to go look for work all day, it would just come to them. I'm like, that's the solution to being proactive about patient retention and compliance ultimately, and your billing. And so when I saw that, we formed a billing company. We started billing. I don't know if you know this, but we started as a company called Billing Precision.
Yep, I remember.
Yeah. So and then we solved the billing issue first, and giving a doctor transparency and control that way. And then we started building the front end engine with this more proactive way to manage the patient retention and compliance than what is today with every other system, reactive management. So that's the short, long story of how I got started.
Right.
So here we are.
So part of our when we switched a few years back, part of what intrigued and I thought it was cool was kind of what you're talking about there, just briefly. And so maybe explain a little bit more, like the artificial intelligence, like you, when I got excited, like I'm not only helping my practice, but the other, how many ever clients of Genesis are continuously helping my practice by submitting claims that get kicked back, and you guys, the brain and the sky automatically adjusts and adapts, continuously every day, every second. And so explain that a little bit.
Yeah, well, the beauty of it is it's very much in line with chiropractic principles and philosophy. And so it's not just that it's in the cloud. That's cool, because for all the things like we talked about earlier, Paul, it's like you can get to it from anywhere. You can see numbers and reports, and you can access it from any time on multiple, it can be a Mac or a P. That's all cool stuff. But what's really cool about it is what's called the network effect, or I like to think of it as a shared immunity. I think that might be what we talked about earlier.
Okay, there you go.
So, what the way it works.
You're telling me you got the chicken pox, and I came and gave you a hug, so I got the chicken pox, so I'm stronger too.
It's better than that. Yeah. Yeah, right. You never even had to go through the suffering. Yeah. Just because I had it, you're now immune.
Yep. Okay.
So think of that from a billing perspective. We learned something that happens in Dr. Paul's practice about how the insurance companies, because they're constantly changing the game, right? Yep. So they're constantly changing, tweaking things, trying to keep us off guard. Now, we learned something about that. We build a rule into the system so that if that claim needs follow, a good example was, it didn't happen years ago as much as it does now. Insurance companies love to underpay you. Yeah. They pay you, but all of a sudden they paid you $40 for that same code at that same carrier for that same plan last month. Now they pay you, $39. No biller would find that. Yeah. Right. Because it looks paid, it came back in the system, it posted, and all that stuff. You'd have to memorize every possible combination. Anyway, so we built in rules and automation into the system that finds that. Let's say we learned that in Paul's practice, and we build that rule in because of what we learned in Paul's practice. Everybody on the network, called the network effect or shared effect. Yeah. It means everybody gets that advantage. And that goes for everything in the system, every feature, every functionality. We're building it on, it's kind of like building an airplane while you're flying. But the benefit is we're not building it on just what we think customers will buy. We build it based on feedback from the gurus, the Pauls, the Zanos, and all these guys that, they do this at a high level. So yeah, that's the network effect.
Well, and that benefits every doc, right? Because he's having his learning curve goes down, or his team's learning curve goes down because of that experience. So that's good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Saves them tons of time, not just in learning, but also in the efficiency of a practice, to the point where you hit the button at the table, like, the claim goes to the insurance company all the way back, and you don't have to look at an aging report to find a claim. Yeah. I mean, how much time does that save?
Well, and like we were talking second ago. So that intelligence is kicking it back to your CA to make an immediate change to get that claim resubmitted,
Yes.
so that you get paid faster. Which at the end of the day, we all have bills, we all have responsibilities, and we want our returns on our services provided to come back as fast as possible, and not 60, 90, 120 days down the road. So maybe touch on how that kicks back to the workbench for the CA or doc to.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So just quickly on that, the crazy thing, now I told you my business partners came from Wall Street and from Princeton, right? So the CIO on Wall Street, he came to the billing world and he's like, what is this that why are you waiting to get paid at all? It's like, I don't understand. And I was like, well, what do you mean? The insurance companies, they have time, they got to process this. I'm giving him, I'm like fighting for the insurance company. I'm like, no, they got to do this, they got to do that. There's codes. He's like, it's all garbage. It's all nonsense. He goes, this is, insurance companies, turns out, make 50% of their money on what's called the float, their profit. Float is not insurance, is interest on your money, meaning you were supposed to get paid today. You didn't get paid maybe a day. The interest on that money, where it should have been in your pocket, but it's in theirs, is how they make 50% of their profit.
Wow.
The whole thing, now on Wall Street, way more complicated transactions happen every single day, where there's multiple parties all over the globe, and everybody gets paid by the end of the day by law. So there's a whole other thing. I have an article on how the insurance companies rig this game this way. This was before Trump, talking about the system being rigged. It is actually rigged. That they
I believe you.
Yeah, it's built just for delay, right? So, like you said, keeping them accountable to get you paid as fast as possible. So how do you do that? You just have to know immediately when you make a mistake. So, and you need to know in one place. You can't have to find that stuff. So with Genesis, you hit the button. First of all, if you're at the table and you're putting in a new charge or a new diagnosis, a new procedure code, if there's a mistake, it tells you right at the table, so that you can fix that, and it fixes the claim going forward. I don't know how much you get to see that, Paul, anymore. But yeah, it tells them right at the table. So the diagnosis code, or there's not a modifier, there's not a link or whatever, you set that today. Now the next day it's going to be fixed. It's going to come up right, but it's the first time you see the patient. That's the first level. The second level is you submit it. Something on the account's not right, for example, like your new patient, the front desk forgot to put their date of birth in. It's not going to go all the way to the insurance company and then all the way back with a denial, right? It's going to immediately hit Genesis validation rules and bounce it right back to your CA. They have one screen of all those up front, the workbench, all those failures, we call them, right? So it comes right back. It tells them what to do. They can click on the claim, and it right on the same screen, it gives them the place they can fix that right there. And as soon as they fix it, it goes right to the insurance company, right? So, and that could happen for multiple different things, right? You can have the address wrong and the date of birth. What insurance companies love to do is you send it out, comes back with date of birth, send it back out, address, send it back out. It's like ping pong. They love that. That's right. No, we fix it all up front, get it out perfectly the first time every single day. So your claims are going out in real time. As soon as they come back electronically, and Genesis automatically looks through the EOBs and automatically posts them. And then it finds the claims that need to be followed up on and sends those claims back to your biller. If you keep it in-house, and we also outsource. We have outsourced service as well, as you know.
Yep, and I've noticed, honestly, with our practices, that the return, that those deposits into our bank account are faster because of that system, instead of waiting waiting for the insurance to send you paper to say, hey, you need to change the address, and then resubmit, send you paper again. Hey, this is still incomplete. And so we've noticed that our deposits into our bank accounts go up faster because of that workbench, catching it and fixing the problem before it's, detecting the subluxation before the subluxation happens. So
being proactive. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So explain to another thing that I like overseeing, and this can apply for the single doc too, but the live practice analytics, meaning I can see what codes, how many of them, how often they're doing it, and manage, right? Because again, insurance world says we should be, 70% should be an A34, 25% or whatever should be an A12, and your re-exams. And so the analytics built in that are live, continuously being monitored. Explain how that, I know that's one of my favorite things is regards to management of the practice.
Yes.
That I like the most.
Yeah, so analytics, right, as soon as you log in the system, as you know, that on the top, there's your vital statistics for your billing. One of the numbers that a lot of doctors don't realize when they're looking for billing performance, the accounts receivable older than 120 days. That's not including personal injury, but that AR over 120, that percent of AR over 120, national average is just under 18% across all specialties, all claims. So why that number is important is because once a claim goes older than, and this is actually in all accounts receivable, once a claim goes over 120 days, the chances of you actually collecting it go down to almost zero.
Wow.
So that means if your AR, if anything is over 120, if it were 18%, which is the average, that means you lose 18% of the money you should collect. On average, that's how much doctors lose. That's a ton of money.
Scary. Yeah, a ton.
So with Genesis, you see that number in real time every single day, and we were held accountable to that, right? So, so that number is sitting there, and across all hundreds and hundreds of practices that we do billing for, we're under 7%. So that means that our doctors, on average, collect 11 percentage points more than the average doctor out there doing their own billing, or even outsourcing it, because it's not just doctors; it's actually comparing billing company to billing company. The reason for that is, number one other thing there is that 7%, if it was 8% today and you got all upset, you can click on it and you can drill in and it'll show you what's in that number, and you can look at that report dynamically, like you were saying. You can look at it by CPT code, by insurance company, by patient, all that stuff, and drill into all the way down to the claim level. And again, if we're doing billing for you, I should say follow-up, we're not really billing.
Yeah.
Following up. If we're doing follow-up for you, or you're doing follow-up in your office, there's a full audit trail of everything that ever happened on that claim, what notes were made to the insurance company, if the system made a validation, it shows you everything from the time it was created off payment. But now reports are awesome for analytical purposes. I hate reports for things that have to be done now, like proactive, like no shows and no future appointments, expired care plans, notes that are not signed. We have all those reports. In Genesis, we separate those two things. We have the reports, but if there's something that's critical, like a note's not signed off, we're going to send you a task. If there's a no-show that happened, it's going to go to a task.
Sorry to cut you off. Explain that task, because that is, I mean, that's essentially the nuts and bolts of getting stuff done timely. You know.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you know, what really matters to driving retention and revenue and compliance is making sure the stuff that was supposed to, and you know this across, you would have no way to do this in just at your level because you have so many practices, but even in one practice, it's hard. What the reality is that all those things that need to happen in every single visit, there's a lot of little things that have to happen to get every single visit perfect, to give that patient a great experience, to keep them coming back, to get great results, and to refer their friends. It all has to happen perfectly like a machine. It's an experience that they have to get, but there's stuff that has to happen. And in other systems, it's like you have your process on a piece of paper somewhere, you train on it, but you don't know it broke down until the patient's gone.
Yep.
So with Genesis, the technology is creating tasks when those, the way I view them is each one of them are a patient relationship risk. No show, no future appointment. Even you not signing off on a note when you're supposed to, or billing out a visit in real time, that's a risk to the patient relationship, because now their account is not accurate. Now, God forbid, you're not doing notes and that keeps happening. Now you get audited. What's a good way to lose patients when they find out you're getting audited? That's one good way to lose patients.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm answering your question. So that we have now with one screen, you can look across your entire team any point during the day and see how many tasks they have outstanding that they didn't finish. And when you click on the person, you see what tasks they have. And what it does, we call it single point management. No more thousands of reports that you're not going to go look at, because the reality is you are owning a business and you're an actual employee in that business. And trying to be an owner, manager, and an employee is almost impossible. Effective.
Yep.
Right,
it is tough, and that's one of the brilliant things that I love. It's again, you got your essentially your pie chart and your graph, and it shows you right there live.
Oh yeah, the radar chart. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's awesome.
Yeah, the radar chart lets you set goals. For example, of I want no shows to be below this, and here's where we are for this month or whatever time frame you set. Yeah, and that's the analytics side where you can see, and then what we teach our docs is, all right, that's the analytics, but what if it's not where you want it to be? What can we build into single point management, that task generation system that'll make sure that that number comes down? Or what integration can we start to use? Let's say no shows is really high. Maybe we want to add a third-party integration like text reminders or whatever the case may be. And the reason why we like to do it that way is, and a lot of software companies, they'll sell you text reminders all day long, and they're great, and they usually bring no shows down. But it's even better when you let it happen without a text reminder, and then you see when you implement it how it actually came down. You can actually quantify how much money that actually served. Yeah.
No, it's good. And that's, again, like I said, that's one of my favorite things about the system is just that live analytic practice analysis, referral tree. You can see exactly what's going on. Yeah. So the other thing that I think docs, if they're, seeking out to maybe look at a new software, maybe run a demo or have you do something with them. The other hang up that and I personally had this hang up, I've gone through a couple other systems, is the own versus lease, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. And we know today, whether it's, all-in-one computer or your phone, that technology is continuously evolving and we can't keep up with it.
Yes.
And that's, and so I finally came to the conclusion, like, it's easier for me to step back and work with you guys where it's a small monthly fee. I don't have to, buy another server every 4 years or 5 years, or the server crashes and I can't do my notes because it's in the closet and it's broke and my IT guy can't get here for 24 hours.
Yes.
And so just kind of removing that barrier of like, no, it's okay with today's constantly changing, evolving world to like, no, let's just pay the few $100 a month and let Brian let Brian and his 10 servers in the sky deal with the issues of that. So explain, I kind of just did, but go ahead on that.
Yeah, there's also liability there now too, right? Like the data, just from the data perspective, what a lot of people hear about hacking all the time now.
Yeah.
Well, the most valuable data on the planet is patient information. So, and the liability, if your data is sitting in your server in your office, and this is kind of a different question, but it's actually your liability if that server gets hacked, and it's a HIPAA fine, which is like $50,000 per occurrence. So you're out of business, like you can't afford it. So just going to the cloud offsets that burden onto us because we have the HIPAA insurance. It's data center is on us, the security of it. Now, if people could hack it, probably. It sounds like from what we're hearing in the news today that they can look at us doing this right now. Right?
Yeah,
so
right.
There's a way to do it. But there's insurance for that. And point is, you don't want to be put out of business for that, and you kind of offset on that. But ownership is really interesting to me because, the reality is that you never owned software anyway. That when you buy a PowerTouch or a Platinum or anything like that, and I've done that, you get a license. You don't own technology. You don't own the code. You don't own any of that. There's a lot of downsides to that. So the difference, by the way, is purchasing a license as opposed to what's called software as a service. It's SaaS model, SaaS, and that's what a subscription-based software is. That's the technical name for it. Software as a service. It's not like a lease or anything like that, because if a lease you could buy it. There's no buying. Because what we're doing is giving you really multi-million-dollar level technology. This is the type of technology that's a business enterprise level technology for a small practice. So if you had to buy a license for it, it would be $40,000, $50,000. So how do we get that to the small practice at a reasonable rate is to be able to charge on a consistent basis over time. The service, software as a service part of it is this. You got to think, why would a software company want you to pay them all up front? Like why do you want to get stuck with the decision that you made when you could just pay a software as a service? Now, the software itself, the technology, the code, it's built in. When it's not software as a service and it's typically on a server in your office, the code you build that software in is the code it will always be in. It's a language. So think about how languages have evolved over time, right? You had hieroglyphics, and now we have emojis. I don't know, right? So there's different languages, right? They keep evolving over time. Or they're almost back to hieroglyphics. But they evolve over time. Now with software, I don't want to name names of software, but you'll see some of the older ones out there that they're just limited. They just can't do certain things because the language they were built in is so old. It doesn't work with the rest of society in software language. All right. So you see them start to be more and more limited as to what functionalities they can build into their software. So that's a huge limitation. That's why it's cheap. Yep. You just pay one time, and you're going to be stuck with that. And 5-10 years from now, you're going to be having that conversation. Well, I already paid them, and I already did this, and I already did that. But you're stuck with software that's costing you money. You're losing revenue. You're losing retention. Your compliance risk is higher, and all this stuff. So why throw good money after bad? Now with software as a service in the cloud, the beauty of it is with Genesis, the language that Paul, you've been using it. So the language that the software is built in today, 10 years ago, it's completely different. Completely different than even 10 years ago. The language, the user interface could actually look the same or change over time. But as the languages evolve, we're able to actually build the platform on the new language in real time so that the capabilities over time of Genesis keep getting better and better and better. We're not stuck static. Yeah. And that's why you pay for it as a service, because you always want the software to be up to date, the latest thing available. So it's a software as a service. It's not a lease, it's not a purchase. And that's the model. And you see everybody doing that now. I mean, Microsoft Office is in the cloud now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really and I also equate it, Brian, to like some people will go out and buy the Ferrari, but most people will lease that Ferrari. You're going to go buy the Honda Accord, right? And just drive it in the ground and give it to your kids, right? But you're going to, like the high-end cars, right? Most are leased 2, 3, 5 years, right? Because you're going to want the latest and greatest. And so this is removing, again, that barrier. You're constantly giving us the latest and greatest,
That's a great, when you say lease, that's a great way to think of it from that perspective. Yeah. You're getting the most cutting edge technology there is, and software that you couldn't sell as a license because it's just too advanced, and you have to charge $40,000, $50,000 for a license. So what's the point?
Yeah. Why? How about, what's that?
I said, you don't want to be stuck, but I hear that all the time. I bought Platinum or Power Touch or whatever, and I spent $10,000, and then when we show them the difference in like billing revenue with that 7% versus 18%,
what's costing them?
It's not a cost, it's an investment. Like you're losing money. Forget that 10,000 is gone. Now you're losing 10,000. Plus you have to pay monthly for those things anyway.
Yep.
Right. So
for updates. Yeah, I get it.
It doesn't make sense.
I get it. And then, so the other thing that we've really, and Partialist, we're working with somebody you partner with, John DeVillian, and his compliance program, but our notes are literally a couple touches to hit all the needed things to support compliance. So touch on that, how simple it is for docs to do. I mean, you have people seeing Chris Dano seeing way more in his practice than I see and than most of the world sees. And getting notes done timely, easy, in that fashion. I think, so that's another benefit, I believe, is even if you're only seeing 100, 200 a week, the faster you do the notes, the sooner you're home with your family.
Absolutely.
So talk about that, how it is really, you guys have created a simple process for notes.
Every second matters, right? No matter, it's either there's an actual return on that time, or like you said, it's just your time. So that's the most valuable thing we have, second maybe to our health. But so when we started looking at this, when we first started, I came from the high volume practice model, thousands a week type thing. So what we did, the first practice, God rest his soul, Charlie Majors, he was the first practice we put the system in.
Okay.
So we had to build it for high volume from day one. So it's been through the fire a lot.
Right.
But the idea is not just that the note is fast, and we've streamlined everything. So a couple of things. Revenue with Genesis clients as compared to clients that don't use the automation type systems. And we've had some clients that just wanted to use the schedule and just want to use a note system, don't want to use all the automation. So we actually monitored them, monitored how they did compared to the clients that do want to use that single point management. Revenue 62% higher, compliance 32%, retention 26%. And what was most interesting to me is that the doctor for their time in office was 33% lower. So it's a huge gap between the increase in the revenue and how much less time, because the management time is less, the time spent documenting is less. So the key is this: it's one channel. The concept is that we have Zano, who's a huge practice, but mostly cash. We have some doctors that are some very little insurance, some doctors that are heavy insurance, some that are more PI. But the way we built it is that you can do a note extremely fast. I don't know if you want me to explain how the note works, but
nah, I mean,
but the ease of it is it comes up, you can see exactly where your patient was previously, touch a couple buttons, and it updates the note. Now you have a new note. But also at the same time, it's on the same screen. The diagnosis codes and the procedure codes are there, and any warnings of that you might be doing something wrong are right there. So that when you hit that button, it's literally the note is signed off on, and the claim is off to the insurance company, assuming there's no errors on the front end, right? If it's off to the insurance company. And then how do you manage the AR and all that other stuff? It just comes back to you if you need to look at it. You don't have to think about all the reports and all the processes that you have and memory manage and worry about it when you go home at night. You can leave the office. Your notes are done. Your billing is done. You can look at your team and if there's any backlog there or not, meaning did they leave anything undone? And then you're done. When you go home, you could just shut it off. Let it go, shut it off. And then you go home, and much less time in management, much less time in actual interaction with the software. And then you have that free time, and your revenue's up, and your compliance is up.
So it's a double win.
Oh man, it's huge. I don't know how to quantify that. There must be some kind of multiplier, but some analytic guy can figure it out. But it's, I mean, it really is. I mean, it's simple and easy. And as you said, some of the highest volume practitioners, in our profession are using it for that exact reason. They're more time at home with their family, not sitting at the office till night at night doing notes. Which is, like you said, time is our most valuable commodity outside of our health. So man, I think it's, well, thanks. Anything you want to, I think we hit on like 5 or 6 different things. Any other thing that you want to give folks about the system that I might've missed? I don't know if we touched on, or if you think we should, on data security or anything like that. Owning data as opposed to not owning data. Did we hit that, or do you think it's important?
Well, I mean, I think we hit the, we talked about the not having a server in office. Yeah. Right. Yep. We touched on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, awesome. Hey guys, I want to thank Brian again, Brian Capra with Genesis, for taking the time to help us help you understand the benefits of using a system, not only from a financial standpoint, for faster return revenues, but we just finished up with talking about how it's going to save you time so you can get home with your families, go to the gym, whatever you want to do for you, by using a system that is super streamlined and consistent for practice management and serving your people. So Brian, thanks for taking the time to interview today. And and I think you're going to give us aren't you going to give me a link that I can get them to do a scheduled demo with you so you can really walk through kind of the details and they can see it?
Absolutely. So if you're watching this video, it'll actually probably be embedded on a web page that'll have a link right below us where you can click and schedule a time. You can actually, when you click that button, it'll show you times that are available. So you can actually not have to call somebody and get a call back and play phone tag. You can actually pick a time and schedule it. And it's that easy. So that's the first step in taking a look at Genesis, and we'll take you through the system. I really appreciate this, man. I mean, it's really like we talked about a lot of kind of complex things. It's so hard for we just get lumped in with every other software out there. There's some big differences that you should take a look at.
Yeah, and I think that's why they should really take the half hour or whatever it is to do a demo with you guys, just to actually sit down, see it on their computer screen, and you want somebody in your team can walk them through how how exactly it works, and they can see it live and because I mean, I like feeling and touching and seeing stuff, before I purchase, and so I think that'll be a great way for them to get a connection with it, not just listening to you and I talk about it. So
cool. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right, bro.